The transport ship landed with a loud thud on the metal platform of Nexus Prime Station. Han-Woo Kim grabbed his small bag and walked down the ramp with the other new students. His heart was beating fast as he looked around at the huge space station that would be his home for the next 4 years. The Galactic Military Academy was the most military school in known space. Students came from dozens of different alien worlds to learn how to fight and protect the galaxy. Han-Woo had dreamed of coming here since he was a little boy on Earth. Now he was finally here, but he felt very small. "Look at all these aliens," said Jiho Park, another human student walking beside him. Jiho was tall and strong, much bigger than Han-Woo. "I heard some of them are really dangerous." Han-Woo nodded, but did not say anything. He was too busy staring at the other students around them. The Vortex students looked like giant lizards walking on 2 legs. They were at least 8 feet tall, with thick scales and sharp teeth. Their eyes glowed red in the station's bright lights. The Quellian students looked like they were made of living crystal. Light passed through their clear bodies and made pretty colors on the walls. They moved very slowly and made soft singing sounds when they talked to each other. Even though they were beautiful, they were still much taller than any human. "This way, new students," called a voice from ahead. A human officer in a blue uniform was waving at them. "Follow me to the main hall for orientation." Han-Woo followed the group through the station's wide hallways. Everything was built from much larger beings than humans. The doorways were twice as tall as they needed to be. The chairs in the waiting areas were too big for human bodies. Even the water fountains were too high for Han-Woo to reach without jumping. "I feel like a child in a grown-up's house," whispered Yunbai Choi, a human girl walking near them. She was about average height for a human, which still made her much taller than Han-Woo. The main hall was enormous. Thousands of new students sat in rows of seats that went up and up toward the ceiling. Han-Woo found a seat near the back and climbed up into it. His feet did not touch the floor. A tall human man walked onto the stage at the front of the hall. He wore a uniform covered with medals and badges. His face was serious but kind. "Welcome to the Galactic Defense Force Academy," the man said. His voice was strong and clear. "I am Commander Taemin Seo. I will be in charge of your training for the next 4 years. The crowd of students became quiet. Commander Seo looked out at all of them with sharp eyes. "You come from many different worlds and species," he continued. "Some of you are strong. Some of you are smart. Some of you are fast. But strength and speed are not the only things that make a good soldier. The best soldiers are the ones who can think quickly and work with others." Han-Woo sat up straighter in his chair. Maybe his small size would not matter so much after all. "During your time here, you will learn to fight in space. You will learn to use weapons and pilot ships. You will learn to work with beings who are very different from you. Most importantly, you will learn that protecting innocent life is the most important job in the galaxy." A loud voice came from the front rows. "What about the tiny human in the back?" Han-Woo felt his face get hot. Everyone in the hall turned to look at him. A huge Vortex student was pointing at him with a clawed finger. "That little thing could not protect a pet, much less fight in a real battle," the Vortex continued. "Why did the Academy even accept such a weak creature?" Other alien students started laughing. The sound echoed through the big hall like thunder. Han-Woo wanted to disappear into his chair. Commander Seo held up his hand and the laughter stopped. "What is your name, cadet?" "Grixtel of the 5th Brood, son of War Chief Mokhtar," the Vortex said proudly. "Well, Grixtel of the 5th Brood?" Commander Seo said calmly, "You have just learned your first lesson at this academy. Never judge a warrior by their size. I have seen small fighters defeat much larger enemies. I have seen quiet students become great leaders. And I have seen loud, proud students fail their first real test." Grixtel's red eyes glowed brighter, but he did not say anything more. "As for you, small human," Commander Seo looked directly at Han-Woo. "What is your name?" Han-Woo stood up on his chair so more people could see him. "Han-Woo Kim, sir." "From Earth." "Cadet Kim, do you think you belong at this academy?" The question surprised Hyun-woo. He thought about all the years he had studied to get here. He thought about all the tests he had passed. He thought about his dream of protecting people across the galaxy. "Yes, sir," he said in a clear voice. "I belong here?" "Good," Commander Seo smiled. "Then prove it." After the ceremony, the new students went to find their rooms. Hyun-woo walked through the hallways with his bag, looking for room 2847. The other human students walked in groups, talking and laughing. But no one talked to Hyun-woo. He finally found his room and pressed his hand on the door scanner. The door opened to show a room with 2 beds, 2 desks, and 2 lockers. Everything was built for beings much larger than humans. A young man was already in the room, putting clothes into one of the lockers. He was tall and thin with kind eyes and messy black hair. "You must be my roommate," the man said with a smile. "I am Dong Hyun Lee. Are you from Earth too?" "Yes," Hyun-woo said, feeling relieved to meet a friendly face. "I am Hyun-woo Kim. Great. I was hoping to get a human roommate. Some of these alien species have very strange sleeping habits." Dong Hyun laughed. "I heard what happened in the main hall. That Vorthek was being a real bully." Hyun-woo put his bag on the empty bed. "I'm used to it. I have been the smallest person in every class my whole life." "Well, maybe that will be useful here," Dong Hyun said. "I read that the Academy's training includes lots of different types of challenges. Being small might help with some of them." That night, Hyun-woo lay in his too-big bed and looked out the window at the stars. Nexus Prime Station moved slowly through space, and he could see the lights of other ships and stations in the distance. He thought about Commander Seo's words. Never judge a warrior by their size? Maybe his dream of becoming a great soldier was not impossible after all. Maybe being small would turn out to be a good thing, but first, he would have to survive 4 years of training with beings who were twice his size and probably twice as strong. He would have to prove that he belonged at the most elite military academy in the galaxy. Hyun-woo closed his eyes and made a promise to himself. No matter how hard it got, no matter how many people laughed at him, he would not give up. He would show everyone that even the smallest human could become a great warrior. He did not know that in just a few years, his name would be known across the entire galaxy. He did not know that his kill count would break every record in military history. He only knew that tomorrow his real training would begin. The alarm rang at 5 in the morning, just like every morning for the past 3 months. Hyun-woo jumped out of bed and quickly put on his training uniform. Dong Hyun was still trying to wake up in the next bed. "Come on," Hyun-woo said, shaking his roommate's shoulder. "We cannot be late for combat training again." The 2 humans ran through the station's hallways toward the training center. Other students were also hurrying to class, but their long legs carried them much faster than the humans could run. In the training center, Instructor Narration was waiting for them. She was a Quellian made of blue crystal that sparkled in the bright lights. Her voice sounded like wind chimes when she spoke. "Today we will practice zero-gravity combat," she announced to the class. "In space battles, you must be able to fight when there is no up or down. You must use walls and ceilings just like floors." The students entered a large room where machines had turned off the artificial gravity. Everything floated freely in the air. Weapons, practice targets, and obstacles drifted slowly around the room. "Your mission is simple," Narration continued. "Reach the target at the far end of the room and press the button. But you must avoid the defensive systems that will try to stop you." Grixtel, the large Vorthek who had embarrassed Hyun-woo the first day, pushed himself off the wall with his powerful legs. He flew straight toward the target like a missile. But the room's defense systems saw him coming. Laser beams shot out and hit him with stun bolts. His body went limp and he floated helplessly in the middle of the room. "Next," called Myra single quotes Sean.1. By one, the students tried to reach the target. The bigger, stronger ones tried to power through the defenses. They all failed. The defense systems were too fast and too accurate. Ji-ho tried a different approach. He moved slowly and tried to hide behind the floating obstacles. But his large human body was still easy for the sensors to find. The lasers hit him before he got halfway to the target. This is impossible, Yunbai said, floating near the entrance. Those defense systems can see everything in the room. Han Wu studied the room carefully. The defense systems use sensors to track movement and body heat. The bigger the target, the easier it was to detect. But what if the target was very small? Can I try a different way? Han Wu asked the instructor. Narration's crystal body flashed with interest. What do you have in mind, small one? Instead of pushing off from the wall, Han Wu found a small piece of debris floating near the entrance. It was about the size of his fist. He pushed it gently toward the target and watched what happened. The defense systems ignored the small piece of debris. It was too tiny to be considered a threat, Han Wu smiled. He took off his equipment belt and boots to make himself even smaller and lighter. Then he curled up into a tight ball and gave himself a very gentle push toward the target. The defense system sensors looked right past him. To their electronic eyes, he was just another piece of floating debris. He drifted slowly across the room, staying curled up in a ball. When he reached the target, he uncurled and pressed the button. A loud chime sounded through the room. Excellent, Narration said, her crystal body glowing brighter with approval. Cadet Kim has shown us that sometimes the best solution is not the most obvious one. The other students stared at Han Wu with surprise. Even Grixtal, who was just recovering from the stun bolts, looked impressed. After class, Ha Young-yoon approached Han Wu in the hallway. She was a human girl with short black hair and smart eyes. She had always been polite to him, but they had never really talked before. That was very clever in there, she said. I never would have thought of that approach. Thank you, Han Wu said, feeling his face get warm. I just tried to think about the problem differently. Most people try to fight their way through obstacles, Ha Young continued, but you found a way around them instead. That is a useful skill for a soldier. Over the next few weeks, Han Wu continued to surprise his instructors and classmates. In the stealth training course, while other students tried to sneak past guards, Han Wu found that he could hide in places they could not even see. The course was set up like an enemy base that students had to infiltrate. Most students tried to avoid the guards or knock them out, but Han Wu discovered that the air vents in the walls were just big enough for his small body to crawl through. He wiggled through the narrow spaces above the ceiling while the guards searched for intruders down below. He reached the objective and completed the mission without anyone even knowing he was there. How did you do that? Dong Hyun asked afterward. The instructors could not figure out how you got past all their security. I used the building's own design against it, Hyun Woo explained. Every building has hidden spaces for air and water pipes. Most people are too big to use them, but I am not. Sergeant Kyung-soo Nam, a tough human instructor with many scars on his face, pulled Hyun-woo aside after the stealth exercise. Kid, I have been training soldiers for 20 years, he said in a quiet voice. I have never seen anyone think like you do. Most fighters try to use strength or speed. You use your brain. Is that good or bad? Hyun-woo asked. In real combat, it could save your life and the lives of your teammates, the sergeant replied, but it also makes you different. Some people do not like different. That night in their room, Dong Hyun was working on homework at his desk while Hyun Woo sat on his bed reading a book about alien psychology. Why are you studying that? Dong Hyun asked. That is not required reading for any of our classes. I want to understand how different species think, Hyun Woo said. If I know how their minds work, maybe I can predict what they will do in battle. You really do think about everything differently than the rest of us, Dong Hyun said with admiration. No wonder you keep surprising the instructors. But not everyone was impressed with Hyun Woo's success. In the dining hall the next day, he overheard some of the alien students talking about him. The tiny human cheats, one Vorthek was saying to his friends. He does not fight with honor like a real warrior. He uses tricks instead of strength, agreed another. In a real battle, tricks would not save him. Han Wu pretended not to hear them, but their words hurt. He was not cheating or using tricks. He was just trying to solve problems in the best way he could. Instructor Narration seemed to understand his approach better than the other students did. After the tactical planning class, she asked him to stay behind. "Cadet Kim," she said, her crystal voice soft and thoughtful, "you have a gift for seeing solutions that others miss. But gifts can be dangerous if they are not used wisely." "What do you mean, instructor?" "Some beings value tradition and honor above results. They may see your methods as wrong even when they are effective. You must be careful not to make too many enemies." "But if my methods work better, should that not matter more than tradition?" Hyan Wu asked. Narration's body flashed with what might have been a smile. "You are wise to ask that question. The answer is complicated. Results do matter, but so does the respect of your fellow soldiers. A leader who cannot earn respect cannot lead effectively." Han Wu thought about her words as he walked back to his room. He was proud of his successes in training, but he was also starting to understand that being different came with a price. He did not know that his unique methods would soon be tested in real combat. He did not know that within months he would face actual enemies who wanted to kill him and his classmates, but he was beginning to understand that his small size and creative thinking might be more valuable than anyone realized. In a galaxy full of strong, fast, and deadly beings, maybe what was needed most was someone who could think in ways no one expected. The emergency alarm woke everyone in the middle of the night. Red lights flashed in the hallways as students ran from their rooms in confusion. Hyan Wu and Dong Hyan quickly put on their uniforms and joined the crowd rushing toward the main briefing hall. Commander Taemin SEO stood at the front of the room with a serious expression on his face. Behind him, a large screen showed a map of the local star system. "Senior cadets, you are being deployed on an emergency mission," he announced. "A civilian transport ship carrying 300 families has been attacked by Nexhari raiders near the Kepler system. The ship is damaged and cannot escape." Han Wu felt his stomach tighten with nervousness. This was not a training exercise. This was real. "The defense fleet is 6 hours away," Commander Seo continued. "We have 2 patrol ships that can reach the transport in 30 minutes. You will board those ships and assist in the rescue operation." "Captain." One Sheikh Han, a veteran officer with gray hair, stepped forward. "Listen carefully, cadets. The Nexhari are not like your training opponents. They are vicious pirates who kill for profit. They will not hesitate to harm civilians or young soldiers." The students were divided into 2 groups. Han Wu found himself assigned to Alpha Squad along with Joho, Yunbai, Hayoung, Dong Hyan, and surprisingly, Grixtal. The big Vorthek looked nervous, which made Hyan Wu feel even more worried. Their patrol ship, the Defender, was fast but lightly armed. As they flew through space toward the emergency, Han Wu looked out the window at the stars and tried to calm his racing heart. "I never thought our first real mission would come so soon," Hayoung said quietly. She was checking her weapon for the 3rd time. "At least we have been training for this," Joho replied. But his voice was not as confident as usual. When they reached the transport ship, Hyan Wu could see the damage immediately. The huge civilian vessel was covered with burn marks from laser weapons. Pieces of metal floated around it in space. Several holes had been blown in its hull. "There," Captain Han pointed to a smaller ship attached to the transport like a parasite. "That is the Nexhari raider. They have probably boarded the transport and are stealing everything valuable." The captain's plan was simple. Alpha Squad would board the transport ship and try to drive out the pirates, while Bravo Squad stayed with the patrol ship to provide support. "Remember," Captain Han said as they prepared to board, "your job is to protect the civilians. Do not try to be heroes. Work together and follow standard procedures." The students put on their spacesuits and used a boarding tube to enter the damaged transport. Inside, the lights flickered and alarms sounded from broken systems. The air smelled like smoke and fear. They moved through the ship's corridors in formation, just like they had practiced hundreds of times in training. But this time, the danger was real. At any moment, they might encounter armed pirates who would try to kill them. "Movement ahead," Kehoe whispered into his radio. Through the smoke, they could see shapes moving in the main passenger area. The Nexhari pirates looked like giant insects walking on two legs. They had 4 arms, sharp claws, and black eyes that reflected the emergency lights. 3 of them were forcing terrified human families to hand over their belongings. Standard formation. Kehoe commanded. As the squad leader, he was supposed to coordinate their attack, but as the students moved into position, one of the pirates spotted them. It made a horrible clicking sound and raised a weapon that looked like it could cut a person in half. The battle started quickly and violently. Laser bolts flashed through the air. The students took cover behind seats and walls while the pirates fired at them with powerful weapons. Grixtol tried to charge forward like a traditional Vorthak warrior, but the enemy weapons were too strong. A laser bolt hit his shoulder and he fell backward with a cry of pain. We cannot get close enough to fight them, Yunbai called out over the noise of weapons. They have better guns than we do. Hanwu looked around the passenger area and noticed something the others had missed. Above the main floor there was a maintenance level with narrow walkways for crew members to access the ship's systems. The walkways were too small for the large Nexhari pirates, but they were perfect for someone his size. Cover me, he said. Into his radio, and before anyone could stop him, he crawled toward a service ladder. Where are you going? Haiyun called out, but Haiyanwu was already climbing up to the maintenance level. From above, he could see the entire battle. His classmates were pinned down behind cover while the 3 pirates controlled the center of the room. The civilians were huddled in corners, crying and trying to protect their children. Haiyun crawled along the narrow walkway until he was directly above the pirates. He remembered what he had learned about Nexhari psychology from his extra reading. They were hunters who relied on pack tactics. If their leader was removed, the others would become confused and disorganized. The largest pirate was clearly the leader. It was giving orders to the others in their clicking language and directing their attacks on the students. Haiyun carefully aimed his weapon and fired a single shot. The laser bolt hit the leader pirate in the back of its insect head. The creature collapsed immediately, just as he had hoped. The other 2 pirates stopped fighting and looked around in confusion. They could not understand where the attack had come from or what had happened to their leader. Now, Haiyun called to his squad. Attack now while they are confused. Jiho, Yunbai, and Haiyun moved forward quickly. The disorganized pirates tried to fight back, but without their leader's coordination, they were no match for the trained students. Within minutes, both remaining pirates were down. How did you do that? Grixtol asked as the squad regrouped. The Vorthak was holding his wounded shoulder, but his red eyes showed respect instead of mockery for the first time. I studied their behavior patterns, Haiyun explained as he climbed down from the maintenance level. Nexhari are pack hunters. Remove the pack leader, and the others lose their ability to work together. Captain Han arrived with reinforcements. A few minutes later, the remaining pirates on their ship had retreated when they lost contact with their boarding party. Excellent work, cadets, the captain said as medical teams helped the wounded civilians. Your quick thinking saved many lives today. But it was Sujin Park, a cadet from Bravo Squad, who really understood what had happened. She had watched the entire battle through the ship's security cameras. You did not just win a fight, she told Haiyun later. You completely changed how the fight worked. While everyone else was trying to shoot it out with superior weapons, you found a way to turn their own pack behavior against them. That night, back at the academy, Haiyun sat in his room and thought about what had happened. He had been in real combat and survived. More importantly, he had found a way to win that did not depend on being bigger or stronger than his enemies. Dong Haiyun was writing his mission report at his desk. The instructors are going to study this battle for years, he said. No one has ever defeated Nexhari pirates with such a small squad and no casualties. I just did what made sense, Haiyun replied. I used what I knew about them against them. That is exactly the point, Dong Haiyun said with a smile. Most soldiers try. To overpower their enemies, you outsmarted them instead. Word of the successful rescue spread quickly through the academy. Students who had ignored or mocked Hyun Woo before now looked at him with new interest. Even some of the alien students admitted that his methods had been effective, but Hyun Woo knew this was just the beginning. One small victory did not make him a great warrior. There would be more battles, bigger challenges, and deadlier enemies ahead. He looked at his official file on his desk computer. Under Combat Record, there was now an entry for the Kepler Transport Rescue. Next to it was a number, Enemy Combatants. Neutralized 3. It was his first official kill count entry, though he had actually captured rather than killed the pirates. He did not know that this small number would someday grow to break every record in galactic military history. News of the Kepler Transport Rescue spread far beyond the Academy walls. Within days, military commanders across the galaxy were asking for detailed reports about the small human's tactics. Hyun Woo found himself called to meetings with senior officers who wanted to understand exactly how he had defeated the Nexhari pirates. Cadet Kim, said Admiral Yeon-Soo Choi during one such meeting, your approach to asymmetric warfare shows remarkable innovation. We would like you to attend advanced tactical seminars normally reserved for senior officers. Hyun Woo felt honored but also overwhelmed. Thank you, Admiral. I will do my best. The Academy is fast-tracking you and several of your squad mates through accelerated training, the Admiral continued. The galaxy faces many threats, and we need creative thinkers on the front lines. Along with Jiho and Eunbai, Hyun Woo was moved into advanced classes normally taken by students in their final year. The coursework was much harder, but he found that his unique way of looking at problems helped him understand complex military strategies. However, not everyone was happy about his sudden fame. In the diplomatic wing of Nexus Prime, alien representatives from various governments held emergency meetings. The Vorthek Dominion was particularly upset about a human showing superior tactical skills. Ambassador Thulmak, a massive Vorthek with elaborate ceremonial scars on his scales, addressed the Galactic Council with anger in his voice. This human's methods are dishonorable, he declared, pounding his clawed fist on the meeting table. He strikes from hiding like a coward. He uses trickery instead of facing his enemies with strength and courage. The crystalline Quellian representative, Zafara, sang a response in her musical voice. Innovation should be celebrated, not condemned. The human found a solution that saved lives and minimized casualties. Is this not what we want from our military? It sets a dangerous precedent, Thulmak argued. If humans are allowed to ignore traditional combat honor, other species may follow. This could destabilize our entire military structure. Back at the Academy, Hyun Woo was unaware of these political discussions. He was focused on his studies and training, trying to keep up with the advanced coursework while also dealing with his new reputation. Some students treated him like a celebrity, asking for his autograph and wanting to hear stories about the pirate battle. Others, especially some of the alien students, seemed to resent his success. The tiny human thinks he is better than everyone. Else now, Hyun Woo overheard a Vorthek student saying in the dining hall, one lucky victory does not make him a great warrior. His old instructor, Sergeant Kyung-Soo Nam, noticed the tension and pulled him aside after combat practice. Kid, you need to be careful, the grizzled sergeant warned. Success makes enemies as well as friends. Some people would rather see you fail than admit that your methods work. What should I do? Hyun Woo asked. Keep your head down and keep learning, the sergeant replied. But also watch your back. Not all enemies attack from the front. The sergeant's warning proved accurate sooner than expected. During a war games exercise designed to test the advanced students' tactical skills, something went very wrong. The exercise took place in a large space station mock-up, where students had to capture strategic points while avoiding simulated enemy forces. Hyun Woo's team included Hayoung and Dong Hyun, along with several alien students he did not know well. The simulation was going well until Hyun Woo entered a maintenance shaft to flank the opposing team. He was crawling through the narrow space when he heard a strange clicking sound behind him. He turned around to see that the shaft's entrance had been sealed shut. Worse, he could hear the hiss of gas being pumped into the enclosed space. Help, he called into his radio. I am trapped in maintenance shaft C7, something is wrong with the life support. Hayoung's voice crackled back immediately. We are coming. Hold on, but the gas was making him dizzy and weak. His vision started to blur as he tried to find another way out of the shaft. Just as he was about to lose consciousness, he heard the sound of cutting tools breaking through the sealed entrance. Donghayan and Hayoung pulled him out of the shaft just in time. Medical teams rushed him to the Academy Hospital, where he spent 2 days recovering from gas poisoning. This was not an accident, Hayoung told him quietly when she visited his hospital room. Someone deliberately sabotaged the exercise to hurt you. Who would do that? Han-Woo asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. We cannot prove it, but the maintenance systems were accessed using an advanced student's authorization code, Donghayan said. Someone with high-level access wanted you dead. Commander SEO launched a full investigation, but no evidence could be found to identify the saboteur. However, security around the human students was quietly increased. The incident made Hyun-woo realize that his growing reputation came with real dangers. There were beings in the galaxy who saw human innovation as a threat to their own power and position. Despite the attempt on his life, Han-Woo continued to excel in his advanced training. His tactical innovations were being studied by military academies across the galaxy. Young officers requested transfers to serve under commanders, who used Kim-style asymmetric tactics, but the political pressure was also growing. More alien governments were demanding that human military methods be restricted or regulated. Some threatened to withdraw from the Galactic Defense Force if humans were allowed to continue developing unconventional strategies. During a meeting with the Academy's senior staff, Han-Woo learned about the broader implications of his success. Cadet Kim, Commander SEO explained, your methods have proven highly effective. But they have also created political complications. Some of our allied governments view human tactical innovation as a threat to traditional military hierarchies. I never meant to cause political problems, Hyun-woo said. I just want to protect innocent people and serve in the military. I know, the commander replied. But you must understand that in a galaxy with hundreds of different species and cultures, military traditions are often tied to concepts of honor and identity. When you prove that traditional methods are not always the best methods, some beings take it as an insult to their entire way of life. Instructor Narration, who was also present at the meeting, added her crystalline voice to the conversation. The young human has shown us that effectiveness should matter more than tradition, but change is difficult for many species. They fear that accepting new methods means abandoning their cultural identity. What happens now? Han-Woo asked. You continue your training, Commander Seo said firmly. But you also need to understand that your every action is being watched by beings across the galaxy. Your success or failure will influence how humans are viewed as military partners for generations to come. That night, Hyun-woo sat on his bed and looked at his updated military record. His kill count from the Kepler rescue had been officially recorded, along with commendations for innovative tactics and life-saving actions, but he also knew that somewhere in the political corridors of alien governments, powerful beings were plotting to stop him and other humans from changing traditional military practices. No pressure at all, Dong-Hyun said sarcastically from his desk, where he was reading reports about the political situation. I just want to be a good soldier, Hyun-woo replied. Why does everything have to be so complicated? Because you are. Not just a soldier anymore, Hyung said from the doorway. She had come to check on him after the hospital stay. Whether you like it or not, you have become a symbol. Some people see you as proof that humans deserve respect in the galactic community. Others see you as a threat to their traditional power. Hyun-woo sighed and looked out the window at the stars. He had dreamed of serving in the military and protecting innocent people. He had never imagined that his success would create enemies who wanted to kill him for political reasons, but he also knew that giving up would mean letting down everyone who believed in him. If his methods could save lives and protect civilians, then he had to continue developing them, regardless of the political consequences. 2 years had passed since Hyun-woo's first battle with the Nexhari pirates. Now, a junior lieutenant fresh out of the academy, he was stationed aboard Kepler Station, a massive fortress that guarded one of the galaxy's most important trade routes. The station was home to 50,000 military personnel and civilians. Its thick armor and powerful weapons made it seem impossible to destroy. But Hyun-woo had learned that nothing in war was truly impossible. "Lieutenant Kim, report to the command center immediately," came the announcement over the station's communication system. Hyun-woo hurried through the corridors, passing worried-looking officers and technicians. Something big was happening, and the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. In the command center, Admiral Yeon-soo Choi stood before a massive display screen showing the space around Kepler Station. What Hyun-woo saw made his blood run cold. Hundreds of dark, organic-looking ships were approaching the station. They moved like a swarm of insects, flowing through space in patterns that hurt to look at. These were Hive collective vessels, and there were more of them than anyone had ever seen in one place. "The Hive has launched their largest offensive in 20 years, Admiral Choi announced to the assembled officers. "Intelligence suggests they are trying to capture this station too, use as a base for attacking the inner worlds." The Hive Collective was every civilized being's nightmare. They were not individual creatures but parts of a vast shared mind that consumed entire planets and turned their populations into more hive drones. Wars with the Hive were not about territory or resources, they were about survival. "Sir," asked Commander Jin-ho Park, one of the station's senior officers, "what are our orders from Fleet Command?" "The main fleet is 3 days away," the Admiral replied grimly. "We must hold this station until reinforcements arrive. If Kepler falls, the Hive will have a clear path to the core worlds." Hyun-woo studied the tactical display. The approaching Hive fleet included dozens of the massive bioships that served as their command centers. Each bioship contained thousands of Hive drones and could regenerate damage by consuming organic matter. "Lieutenant Kim," Admiral Choi called out, "I want your assessment of our defensive capabilities." Hyun-woo had been studying Hive tactics since his academy days. He understood their strengths and weaknesses better than most officers twice his age. "Admiral, our conventional defenses will not be enough," he said honestly. "The Hive does not care about casualties. They will keep attacking until they overwhelm us through sheer numbers." "Then what do you suggest?" the Admiral asked. "We need to disrupt their command structure," Hyun-woo replied. "The Hive drones are controlled by neural networks in their bioships. If we can interfere with those networks, their coordination will collapse." Before the Admiral could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The first wave of Hive ships had arrived and was beginning their attack. The battle started like a nightmare. Thousands of Hive fighters swarmed around Kepler Station like angry insects. The station's defense weapons fired continuously, destroying hundreds of enemy ships, but more kept coming. Hive boarding pods slammed into the station's hull, cutting through armor with acidic secretions. Soon, Hive drones were fighting human defenders in the corridors and maintenance areas. In the command center, Admiral Choi coordinated the defense while reports of casualties poured in from all sections of the station. The situation was getting worse by the hour. "Sir, sections 7 through 12 have been overrun," reported a communications officer. "We have lost contact with the lower weapon batteries. Seal those sections and reroute power to the remaining defenses," the Admiral ordered. But everyone in the command center could see that they were losing. The Hive's endless numbers were slowly overwhelming their defenses. Within hours, the entire station would be consumed, then disaster struck. A Hive heavy fighter broke through the defensive screen and fired directly at the command center. The explosion killed Admiral Choi instantly and left the station's leadership in chaos. With their commander dead and no clear chain of command, the various department heads began arguing about what to do next. Some wanted to evacuate. Others wanted to make a last stand. No one could agree on a strategy. "We need to surrender," said one panicked officer. "Maybe the Hive will spare the civilians if we give up now." "The Hive does not take prisoners," Hyun-woo said firmly. "They consume everything. Our only choice is to keep fighting." But fighting conventionally would only delay the inevitable. The station needed a miracle, and Haiyan Wu realized he might have to provide it. He found Sujin Park, his old academy classmate who now served as the station's demolitions expert, in the armory preparing explosive charges. "Sujin, I need your help with something crazy," he said. She looked up from her work with a grim smile. "These days, crazy might be our only option. What do you have in mind?" "I want to infiltrate the main Hive bioship and disrupt their neural network from inside," Haiyan Wu explained. Sujin stared at him like he had lost his mind. "That is suicide. Those bioships are living creatures the size of battleships. Even if you could get inside, how would you find the neural center?" "I have been studying hive biology for years," Haiyan Wu replied. "Their bioships follow predictable organic patterns. The neural center will be in the most protected part of the ship, probably near the core." "And how exactly do you plan to get inside a living battleship?" Haiyan Wu smiled grimly. "The same way I've always solved impossible problems. I find a way that no one else would think to try." He gathered a small team of volunteers, Sujin with her explosives expertise, Dong Haiyan Li, who had become a communications specialist, and surprisingly, Grixtal, who had requested transfer to Kepler Station to serve alongside his old academy rival. "You realize this plan has almost no chance of success," Grixtal said as they prepared their equipment. "Almost no chance is better than no chance at all," Haiyan Wu replied. "If we do nothing, everyone on this station dies anyway." The plan was desperate but simple. They would use a damaged hive fighter as camouflage to approach the main bioship. Once close enough, Haiyan Wu would use his small size to enter the creature through damaged areas in its hull. While his team provided support and distraction, getting close to the bioship was terrifying. The massive living vessel was over 2 kilometers long and covered with weapons that looked like organic growths. It pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to hypnotize anyone who stared too long. There, Haiyan Wu pointed to a section of the hull that had been damaged by station weapons. "That breach is big enough for me to crawl through, but too small for hive drones to use effectively." Sujin placed shaped charges around the breach to widen it slightly. "Once you are inside, you will have maybe 20 minutes before the ship's immune system identifies you as a foreign body and sends antibodies to destroy you." 20 minutes should be enough, Haiyan Wu said, though he was not entirely sure that was true. Crawling through the breach was like entering the digestive system of some vast creature. The walls were warm and wet, pulsing with a rhythm like a heartbeat. Bioluminescent veins provided dim light, but also made everything look alien and wrong. Haiyan Wu followed the largest neural pathways toward the center of the ship. He could hear his team's voices through his radio, growing fainter as he moved deeper into the bioship's body. "Haiyan Wu, we are detecting massive movement in the corridors behind you," Dong Haiyan's voice crackled through static. "The ship knows. You are inside." The neural center was exactly where Haiyan Wu had predicted it would be, in a chamber at the heart of the bioship, surrounded by thick walls of living tissue. The room pulsed with electrical activity as thousands of organic computers coordinated the hive fleet's attack, but destroying the neural center would not be enough to stop the attack. Han Wu needed to do something that would disrupt the entire hive network. Not just this one ship, he activated the virus program that Academy computer specialists had developed for exactly this situation. Instead of destroying the bioship's neural network, the virus would infect it with conflicting commands and spread to other hive vessels through their shared consciousness. As the virus uploaded, Henwu could hear the bioship's biological systems beginning to fight back. Antibody creatures were crawling through the passages toward his location, and the walls were starting to secrete acidic fluids. "Upload complete," he reported to his team. "Get ready to run." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Instead of coordinated attacks, the hive fleet suddenly began acting erratically. Some ships attacked their own allies. Others flew in random directions. The shared mind that controlled them all was experiencing something like electronic madness. Haiyan Wu barely escaped from the bioship as its internal systems went haywire. The massive creature began convulsing and eventually exploded in a burst of bioluminescent fire that lit up the entire battle zone, with their command structure disrupted. The remaining hive ships retreated in chaos. Kepler Station was saved, though at a terrible cost. Thousands of defenders had died, including many of Hyun-woo's friends from the Academy. In the aftermath, as rescue teams searched the damaged station, Hyun-woo sat in the medical bay and stared at his updated military record. His kill count had increased dramatically from this single battle, but the numbers felt meaningful. After the Battle of Kepler Station, Hyun-woo's name became known throughout the galaxy. His tactics for disrupting the Hive Collective were studied at every military academy and implemented by defense forces on dozens of worlds. But fame brought burdens that the young officer had never expected. Now a captain at age 24, Hyun-woo commanded his own tactical unit aboard the battleship Harmony. His kill count had grown to numbers that made veteran officers shake their heads in amazement. But the weight of those numbers pressed down on his shoulders like a physical burden. Captain Kim, incoming transmission from Fleet Command, announced his communications officer, Lieutenant Da-young Yoon. She had requested transfer to his unit after graduating at the top of her class, and had become his most trusted advisor. Put it through to my quarters, Hyun-woo replied. He needed privacy for conversations with high command these days. Too many people wanted to listen in on what the famous tiny giant was planning next. In his small cabin, Admiral Jinwoo Choi's face appeared on the communication screen. The admiral was the younger brother of the officer who had died at Kepler Station, and he had specifically requested to work with Hyun-woo. Captain, we have a situation developing in the Rigel sector, the admiral began. The Hive has adapted to your neural disruption tactics. They are using smaller, independent bioships that do not rely on centralized command networks. Hyun-woo felt his stomach tighten. He had feared this would happen eventually. How bad is it, sir? We lost 3 colonies last week. The traditional fleet tactics are not working against these new hive formations. They are requesting your unit specifically. Understood. We will depart within the hour. After ending the transmission, Hyun-woo sat alone in his cabin and stared at the official reports. Every innovation he created, the enemy eventually found ways to counter. It was like an endless chess game where innocent lives were the pieces being sacrificed. A soft chime indicated someone was at his door. Come in, he called. Yu Unbai Choi entered, now a commander and his second-in-command. She carried a bottle and 2 glasses, a sign that she wanted to have a serious conversation. You look like hell, she said bluntly, pouring drinks for both of them. Thank you for the morale boost, Hyun-woo replied with tired humor. I am serious. When did you last sleep more than 4 hours? When did you last eat a full meal? You are pushing yourself too hard? Hyun-woo took the offered glass but did not drink. People are dying because I cannot stay ahead of the enemy. Every day I waste on rest is another colony that gets consumed by the hive. And you will be no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion, Yunbai countered. The crew is worried about you. Hayoung asked me to talk to you because she thinks you will not listen to her. The mention of Hayoung's concern made Hyun-woo feel even worse. Over the years, he and Hayoung had grown close, but his dedication to the war effort left little time for personal relationships. The reports from Fleet Intelligence are getting worse, he said, changing the subject. The Hive is not just adapting to my tactics, they are studying human psychology. They know exactly which buttons to push to break our morale. This was true and terrifying. Recent Hive attacks had targeted specific individuals known to be friends or family of key military personnel. They were using psychological warfare as effectively as any biological weapon, which is why you need to see Dr. Min-young Lee, Yunbai said firmly. The fleet psychologist has been requesting meetings with you for months. Hyun-woo had been avoiding the mandatory psychological evaluations required of all senior officers. He knew that if Dr. Lee saw how badly the war was affecting him, she might recommend he be removed from combat duty. I cannot afford to be taken off active duty, he said. You cannot afford not to deal with whatever is eating you alive from the inside, Yunbai replied. Talk to someone, Hyanwu. That is an order from your friend, not your second-in-command. The next day, Hyanwu reluctantly visited Dr. Li's office in the ship's medical section. The elderly woman had kind eyes, but a reputation for seeing through any attempt to hide psychological problems. Captain Kim, thank you for finally accepting my invitation, she said with a slight smile that suggested she knew exactly why he had been avoiding her. Commander Choi insisted, Hyanwu replied honestly, smart woman. Now, let us talk about what is really bothering you. For the next hour, Dr. Li skillfully guided Hyanwu through a conversation about the war, his responsibilities, and the friends he had lost. By the end, he found himself talking about things he had never discussed with anyone. I keep having the same dream, he admitted. I see all the people who have died because of decisions I made. Not just enemies, but our own people who followed. My plans into battles they did not survive. Survivor guilt is common among successful military leaders, Dr. Li said gently. But you seem to be carrying responsibility for deaths that were not your fault. How can they not be my fault? I am the one who creates the strategies. I am the one who sends people into danger. And you are also the one who has saved millions of lives with those same strategies, Dr. Li pointed out. Your tactics at Kepler Station alone prevented the hive from reaching the inner colonies. Do those lives not count? Hyanwu had never thought about it that way. He was so focused on the people he could not save that he rarely considered the people he had saved. Captain, Dr. Li continued, may I share something with you? I have evaluated hundreds of military officers over the years. The ones who worry me are not the ones who feel guilty about the deaths they cause. I worry about the ones who feel nothing at all. Their conversation was interrupted by the ship's general alarm. Hyanwu's unit was being called to battle stations for immediate deployment to the Rigel sector. As he prepared for another battle, Hyanwu found himself thinking about Dr. Li's words. Maybe feeling guilty about the cost of war was not a weakness. Maybe it was what kept him human in situations that could easily turn anyone into a monster. The Battle of Rigel 7 was unlike anything Hyanwu had experienced before. The Hive's new tactics were specifically designed to counter his previous innovations. Instead of large, coordinated fleets, they used small groups of bioships that attacked randomly and retreated, before effective counterattacks could be organized. Worse, the Hive had learned to target the psychological weak points of human commanders. During the battle, they specifically attacked evacuation ships carrying the families of fleet officers, forcing the humans to choose between tactical objectives and personal loyalties. Captain, they are targeting the civilian transport carrying Admiral Sung's family, Haiyang reported with strain in her voice. Hyanwu faced an impossible choice. If he diverted forces to protect the transport, the Hive would overwhelm the colony's main defenses. If he stayed focused on the military objective, innocent civilians would die, including people he knew personally. Maintain formation, he ordered, hating himself for the words. The colony's defense takes priority. The decision saved the colony but cost the lives of 200 civilians, including the admiral's wife and children. The psychological impact on the fleet was devastating. Several officers requested transfers rather than continue serving under Hyanwu's command. That night, alone in his cabin, Hyanwu stared at his updated military records. His kill count continued to grow, but so did the list of friendly casualties in battles under his command. The numbers that had once made him proud now felt like accusations. A message from his old academy roommate Dong Hyan, now serving as a communications specialist at fleet headquarters, appeared on his personal terminal. Hyanwu, I know what happened at Rigel 7. I know you are blaming yourself. But I also know that colony would have fallen without your intervention. 6 million people are alive because of the choice you made. That has to count for something. Your old friend Dong Hyan. Hyanwu appreciated the message, but it did not make the burden any lighter. He was beginning to understand that being an effective military leader meant making decisions that would haunt him for the rest of his life, The next morning brought news that made everything worse. Fleet intelligence had intercepted Hive communications, indicating that they were specifically targeting Haiyan Wu's known associates and friends. Anyone who had served with him or been mentioned in connection with his tactics was now a priority target for Hive assassination teams. They are trying to break you psychologically, Haiyang explained as they reviewed the intelligence reports. If they can make you afraid to form relationships or trust your subordinates, they can destroy your effectiveness as a leader. It is working, Haiyan Wu admitted. How can I continue to lead people into danger when I know the enemy is specifically targeting them because of their connection to me? By remembering that giving up means letting the Hive win, Yunbai said firmly. And by trusting that the people who choose to serve with you understand the risks and believe in what we are fighting for. But trust was becoming harder to maintain. In the following weeks, 3 more officers who had served under Haiyan Wu were killed in what appeared to be targeted attacks. The pattern was clear. The Hive was waging psychological warfare as much as military warfare. Haiyan Wu found himself withdrawing from his staff, keeping interactions professional and distant. If he did not get close to people, the war had been raging for 3 years since Kepler Station, and the Hive Collective was winning. Despite all of Haiyan Wu's tactical innovations, the enemy continued to adapt and evolve. Entire sectors of space had fallen to the insectoid swarms, and billions of beings had been consumed or converted into Hive drones. Admiral Haiyan Wu Kim, promoted after his previous commander died in the Battle of Centauri, stood in the war room of the massive battleship Unity, staring at holographic displays that showed the current state of the galactic conflict. The news was all bad. Sir, we have lost contact with the Tau Ceti colonies, reported Commander Haiyang Yun, now his chief intelligence officer. Long-range sensors indicate complete biological conversion of all inhabited worlds in that system. That makes 12 systems lost this month, added Commander Yunbai Choi, who served as his strategic planning officer. At this rate, the Hive will reach the core worlds within 6 months. Haiyan Wu nodded grimly. The enemy had learned to counter every strategy he developed almost as quickly as he could implement it. It was as if they could predict his thinking patterns and prepare countermeasures in advance. There's something else, sir, Haiyang said hesitantly. Intelligence has identified the source of the Hive's rapid adaptation to our tactics. She activated a new holographic display showing intercepted Hive communications. They have been studying detailed psychological profiles of human military leaders, particularly you. They know how we think, how we make decisions, and how we react under pressure. The revelation was disturbing but not entirely surprising. Han Wu had suspected for months that the enemy possessed detailed knowledge about his methods and personality. How detailed are these profiles? He asked. Comprehensive enough that they can predict your likely responses to specific tactical situations with over 80% accuracy, Haiyang replied. They are essentially fighting a war against your mind rather than our military forces. This explained why recent battles had felt like the enemy was always one step ahead. The Hive was not just adapting to human tactics, they were specifically adapting to Haiyan Wu's way of thinking. Sir, incoming priority transmission from Fleet Command, announced the communications officer. The holographic image of Fleet Admiral Sangmin Park appeared in the center of the war room. His expression was grim, and Haiyang Wu could see the strain of 3 years of losing battles in the older man's eyes. Admiral Kim, the Galactic Council has authorized Operation Final Stand, he announced. We are implementing your proposal for a direct assault on the Hive core worlds. Hanu felt his stomach clench with nervousness. 6 months ago, he had submitted a desperate plan to Fleet Command as a last resort option. He had hoped they would never need to use it. Sir, the casualty projections for that operation are extremely high, he said carefully. The casualty projections for doing nothing are 100%, Admiral Park replied bluntly. Every living being in the galaxy will be dead or converted within a year if we cannot stop the Hive's expansion. Your plan is the only option we have left. The plan was indeed desperate. Instead of fighting the massive hive fleets in open space, Han-Wu proposed using a small task force to penetrate directly to the hive central command cluster deep in enemy territory. If they could disrupt the core consciousness that controlled the entire collective, the widespread hive forces might become disorganized enough for conventional forces to defeat. You will have complete authority to select your task force, Admiral Park continued. Choose whoever you think gives us the best chance of success. After the transmission ended, Han-Wu stood alone in the war room for several minutes, staring at the tactical displays. He was about to ask people he cared about to join him on what was almost certainly a suicide mission. His first choice was easy. Sujin Park had volunteered for every dangerous mission since their academy days together. Now a colonel specializing in demolitions and boarding operations, she was exactly the kind of officer he needed for infiltrating hive bioships. You know, this is probably a suicide mission, he told her when he made the request. Probably, she agreed with a tired smile. But if we do not try, it is definitely suicide for everyone else. Besides, we have been taking impossible odds since that first pirate fight years ago. Dong Haiyan Li was his second choice. Now a communications expert. With the rank of commander, his old roommate had developed new technologies for interfering with hive neural networks. His expertise would be crucial for the mission. My wife thinks I am insane for volunteering, Dong Haiyan told him over a private dinner. But she also understands that this might be our only chance to end the war before it ends us. The most surprising volunteer was Grixtal, the former academy rival who had become one of Han-Wu's most trusted officers. The massive Vorthak had proven himself in dozens of battles and earned respect throughout the fleet for his tactical skills. You taught me that honor comes from protecting the innocent, not from following tradition, Grixtal said when he requested to join the mission. I would be honored to fight beside you one final time. The task force assembled at a secret staging area near the Galactic Rim. In addition to Han-Wu's chosen team, they had 5 modified warships equipped with experimental cloaking technology, and enough firepower to fight their way through moderate hive resistance. But the most important equipment was the experimental neural interface device developed by Dr. Sang-Ho Kim, the fleet's leading expert on hive biology. The device would allow a human operator to connect directly with hive consciousness networks. But the psychological risks were enormous. The hive mind is not like human consciousness, Dr. Kim explained during the final briefing. It processes information in ways that can seriously damage an individual brain. Previous test subjects experienced permanent psychosis after exposure to hive mental patterns. What are my chances of surviving the interface process? Han-Wu asked bluntly. Unknown, the doctor admitted. Your brain structure is unusual, smaller than average, but with higher neural density. This might make you more resistant to hive mental attacks, or it might make you more vulnerable. We simply do not know. The journey to the hive core worlds took 2 weeks, traveling through space that had been completely consumed by the enemy. Dead planets stripped of all organic matter drifted like skulls through systems that had once supported billions of lives. I have never seen anything like this, Han whispered as they passed the remains of what had been a beautiful garden world. They consumed everything, even the bacteria in the soil. The hive core cluster was a nightmare made visible. Hundreds of massive bioships, each one the size of a small moon, orbited around a central consciousness nexus that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. The nexus itself was a living structure larger than most space stations, covered with neural tissue that coordinated hive activities across the entire galaxy. There, Han-Wu pointed to a section of the nexus that showed damage from some previous battle. That breach is our entry point. If we can get inside and reach the central consciousness chamber, I can use the neural interface to disrupt their command network. And if the interface kills you? Yumbai asked quietly. Then you detonate Sujin's charges and try to destroy the nexus with conventional explosives, Han-Wu replied. Either way, we have to stop the central consciousness from coordinating future attacks. The infiltration was the most terrifying experience of Han-Wu's military career. Moving through the living corridors of the consciousness nexus was like being inside the brain of some vast alien intelligence. The walls pulsed with thoughts too complex and alien for human minds to fully comprehend. Hive antibody creatures pursued them through the organic passages, but Sujin's explosives and Grixtal's combat skills kept the path clear. Dong Haiyan's electronic warfare systems prevented the Nexus from alerting the surrounding bioships to their presence. The central consciousness chamber was a vast spherical room filled with floating neural tissue that sparkled with electrical activity. This was the brain that controlled trillions of hive drones across hundreds of star systems. "Are you sure about this?" Hayoung asked as Hyungwoo prepared the neural interface device. "No," he admitted, "but I am sure about what happens if we do nothing." Connecting to the hive consciousness was like diving into an ocean of alien thoughts. Hyungwoo's individual human mind was immediately overwhelmed by the vast collective intelligence that surrounded him. He could feel his sense of self beginning to dissolve into the larger consciousness, but instead of fighting the experience, he used techniques Dr. Lee had taught him for managing psychological trauma. He accepted the alien thoughts without letting them define his identity. His small human brain, ironically, proved more flexible and resilient than the rigid hive consciousness expected. Through the neural link, Hyungwoo could see the entire scope of the hive's operations. Millions of drones across the galaxy were controlled by this single consciousness, making them incredibly efficient, but also vulnerable to the right kind of disruption. Instead of trying to destroy the consciousness, Hyungwoo did something unexpected. He began introducing human concepts that the collective mind found fascinating: individuality, creativity, and the right to choose one's own path. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Parts of the hive. 10 years had passed since the destruction of the hive consciousness nexus. The galaxy was at peace for the first time in decades, and the rebuilt Galactic Military Academy on Nexus Prime was preparing to welcome a new class of cadets from across. Known Space Fleet Admiral Hyungwoo Kim stood at the podium in the Academy's main hall, looking out at hundreds of young beings from dozens of different species. Some were tall, some were small, some looked like living crystals, and others resembled armored insects. But all of them shared the same nervous excitement he remembered feeling on his own first day at the Academy so many years ago. "Welcome to the Galactic Defense Force Academy," he began, his voice carrying easily through the vast hall. "You are here because you have chosen to dedicate your lives to protecting innocent beings throughout the galaxy." In the front row, he could see several former enemies who were now allies. A group of former hive drones, their insectoid features softened by individual personality and choice, sat next to Nexhari pirates who had given up raiding to become legitimate security officers. The galaxy had become a much more complicated, but also much more hopeful place. Some of you come from warrior cultures that value strength and honor above all else.